I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight is the second budget meeting that the Regional School District is having, and we have the principals from East Brookfield, Wye Village, and Lake Street with us tonight, as well as the financial overseer, Roger Young, who will speak to us at the beginning of the meeting. Before we get started, I would just like to give good wishes to the David Prouty basketball team, who plays tonight at 7 o'clock in the first round of the districts against Bartlett High School out in Bartlett, so in Webster. We hope them all the success and hope they come back and tell us they go into round 2. Okay, at this point, I'd like to open up to Mr. Roger Young, the financial overseer. Roger, if you'd like to.
Thank you. Everybody surviving winter so far? I don't know. It's getting more difficult, that's for sure. My role, or the purpose of my being here tonight, is to share some thoughts in terms of the oversight that has been taking place since the end of July of this year. And as you know, there are really three main issues that took place last year. The first issue is that the school district overspent its budget by $1.3 million. So that was a significant problem. The second issue is that it was clear that there was a lack of internal controls in financial oversight in the district. So that's the second reason. And then the third reason, which occurred because of the special legislation that was required in order to be able to bond the money in order to pay the creditors and so forth. And one of the requirements of the special legislation was that there be a financial overseer, someone to provide oversight in terms of the finances. So that's the way the role has evolved. The activities of the oversight would include all financial activities, so whether it be budgeting or forecasting and controls and so forth. It could be student activity accounts, or it could be the school lunch program. All of the items that have some financial impact with the district, I spend my time asking a lot of questions and providing guidance that I think is important, and then recommendations and so forth. So it's taking a look at all of the financial activities, but then a major part of it is really to help identify or determine whether or not the school district has the ability to manage their resources. And so that is a major element. And then the other third element would be to report to the Commissioner of Education on those two activities. So what I primarily try to do is take a look at all the financial activities, to make recommendations, and all through this process help to identify the district's ability to be able to manage resources. And then the third is to report to the commissioner. So I thought maybe you might be interested in terms of the approach that I'm taking with this activity. And the first item was to really get an understanding of how and what took place last year. So that was the first element. Second element was to review the recommendations from the Department of Education through the accountability review that I understand that you just recently had a report earlier this month, to find out from the Department of Revenue's perspective in terms of the issues, and also your own auditor, who does a single audit act, who reviews all of the finances on a yearly basis and provides a report. And along with that report are what's described as findings. And then what are the recommendations? And certainly one of the largest findings last year was the fact that there were not the internal controls that led to the over expenditure of all of the revenues coming in. So as I'm focusing in, I would like for you to think about the activities of financial tracking, forecasting, controls, and audits. So I think that is the major element that I am looking at right now. And so in those areas, I take a look at what type of external audits are taking place and have taken place, and has that been ongoing for many years, which in fact it has, and will continue. Are the findings addressed? That in every audit, when somebody has an audit, the auditor will identify findings and make recommendations, and the goal is to reduce those findings, but you'll never eliminate them. So something that may not rise to the level of importance this year because it wasn't mentioned, it could be mentioned next year. So that the notion of continuous improvement we have to keep in mind for financial audits. So the big thing about that is to make sure that all of the findings are being addressed by the district, and they are. Another item is that there is regular tracking of the expenditures and the revenues. And I would think that all of you as school committee members, as I understand it, are receiving monthly reports from the business manager in terms of the expense and what's left in the year and if there's a problem and so forth. So that discussion takes place there, so that it's one item to report on the expenses versus the budget, but then it's also important to be able to reconcile cash, to be able to project out for the rest of the year, for the treasurer and the school business official to work together, and I'll comment on that in a moment. Another item is that there's adequate technology in order to accomplish that. And that is another important element in the fact that the district uses Budget Sense, that it's an online program, it's internet-based, and all of the principals are able to get access to their accounts to be able to see where they stand in relationship to their budget. Another item that is important is the procurement process. Are the vendors being engaged in an appropriate way that is following Chapter 30B and the procurement requirements? So that's another item. And then the last item that is of particular interest to me is the fact, do you have qualified staff? And I'll say right off the bat here, with the superintendent, the school business official, and the treasurer, that you have 3 committed professional individuals that know what they're doing with their history and their experiences. So you have qualified staff. One of the items that is most important to me is that all cash is reconciled on a monthly basis for each of the funds that the school department manages. That is being done on a monthly basis, and the treasurer and the business official are doing that together. A second item is to be able to project what the cash flow is going to be for the remainder of the year, so that you will know that you'll have a high degree of confidence that you're going to have enough cash to get through for the rest of the year. And I think that all of you know that cash doesn't come in all the time when you want it to be. So you have to keep monitoring that. And that also means that the office staff needs to make sure that they're applying for the grant revenues so that they're dispersed in a timely way. And all of that seems to be occurring. Next item is that monitoring the grants and making sure, as I just said, that's kind of redundant, but making sure that all the money is coming in and that all of the reports are being made in a timely process. And then the last item is the financial reporting. So So I receive, as you do, those financial reports, and I'll end up asking a lot of questions, just like I would hope that you're asking a lot of questions in terms of what are the problem areas, how are we going to solve this, how is this going to impact negotiations, and all of the other activities that you need to keep in mind. So what is the status at this time? So from my perspective, the Spencer East Brookfield Regional School District has the capacity to manage your finances. And as I mentioned just earlier, with the superintendent, the business manager, and the treasurer. So that's one item. Second item is that all of the revenues and expenses are being monitored on a monthly basis, and that there is every indication that all of the budgets are within budget, so that there are not any deficits that are anticipated at this time. The third item that I would like to mention is that internal controls, in my opinion, are being better managed. And part of that is because there are more discussions. Another part of it is that I am looking for these internal controls to be documented in terms of standard operating practices, so that when there is a turnover of key leadership, that these practices have been codified and that they are there for the next person. They help set a higher standard in terms of that. Another item that is accomplished that has been on the laundry list that was identified was the student activity accounts. And I believe that all of you were involved with the updating of the policy for student activity accounts. And I believe the treasurer has described what the new process is. And I'm convinced that they are meeting the letter of the law and that they have a process in place that will help facilitate student activity accounting at the schools. So I think that there's a great amount of work that's been accomplished there. But the last item I want to mention is that things can change on a dime. That you can have a major problem with a facility, you can have a winter that's been extremely cold and you're going to just be spending more utilities. You could have a staff member go out on a long-term illness and need to bring in a replacement. That you have special ed placements. Do you have negotiations? You have a lot of things that are always in the air that are having to be managed. And the idea is that if something ends up being a problem, you discover it as soon as possible, as opposed to at the end of the day or at the end of the school year when there is no time to recover. So I believe that the district is doing what it's supposed to. I know that there are a lot of challenges that you're going through the budget process right now in terms of the community's ability to fund the district and to understand what all of the needs are, so that you have many challenges, and I know that all of you are going to do a great job, but at least from my little perspective, people are watching the money as close as possible. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, Roger, on some of the items that you mentioned, adequate technology, you mentioned the Budget Sense program. Do you feel we have adequate technology in central office?
Only as it relates to managing the finances. Whether it's the network or the printer or all of the other needs of a central office or of a school, I really don't have anything that I can comment on that. But just specifically does technology provide the ability to track every transaction, to create requisitions and purchase orders, and to know exactly where you stand? That's what I refer with regard to that.
Okay. You also mentioned the procurement process in 30B. Do you find we are following that and adhering?
Well, I have not found any instances where you're not. Okay. So, to be able to say that I look at every transaction and so forth, but no. But that is just something that is a constant that I will be doing.
Okay. And my last question is, you mentioned grants. Have you found, in what you've looked at, are we monitoring grants properly, or are we administrating them properly? Did you find any red flags in regards to any grants at all?
With regard to grants, my particular focus is not on how they're spent or how they're used in the individual schools, but rather are reports being made in a timely way? And are there any issues with the Department of Education and the district regarding the grants? And I've spoken with the grants folks there and asked them that question right off the bat: is there any issue with the district with regard to any of the state and federal grants that they manage? And the answer was no. And if there was, they would tell me. But with regard to how it's being implemented, that's outside my scope.
Okay, all right. Do any of the board members have any questions? Mr. Cloutier?
I just have one. Roger, can you share with us what you're reporting back and, maybe some of the conversations that you're having with the Commissioner of Education regarding the Spencer District, East Brookfield District?
Well, what I do on a monthly basis is that I provide a written report in terms of the activities that have taken place in the district and my observations and any recommendations that I have. So I do that on a regular basis. And then I'll have an opportunity to talk with some of their staff members on a more extemporaneous fashion as opposed to a regular reporting function in terms of it. And they're constantly asking, well, what's going on about this? What's going on about that? Or what are your observations? Or things of that nature.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Nordquist?
I just want to ask you, is there any weaknesses that you have found that's not being addressed, or sore spots, so to say?
I can say almost categorically, and I'd say categorically, but I'd probably forget something as I'm saying it, is that all of the recommendations that I've made or the observations I've made have been accepted and acted upon. Does that mean that they're all complete? No, because a lot of them are just items in progress. For example, I mentioned standard operating practices, having that codified. That is a work in process, and that will probably never be complete in terms of that. But to look at it, I think, from the other side of the picture, is there anything significant that is not being addressed that I think that would impact the financial health of the district? Is that I have not seen that or identify that and then somebody not be responsive. But I will say that staff members have been responsive in terms of acting on it and responsible in terms of the way that they go about their business.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from any of the members? Dr. Malvey, do you have any comments?
I would just thank you to Roger. We've come to know and respect each other over the 8 months, and although there are times when we may disagree, we certainly put our professionalism on the table, so to speak, to work issues through, and I appreciate his level of expertise in such a difficult situation that we're involved in. But I guess I would just ask maybe to summarize in layman's terms from what you saw, Roger, coming into the district back in those nice, comfortable, warm days of July, the situation we were in, and where we are now 8 months down the road, kind of in layman's terms as opposed to some of the financial terminology.
In layman's terms, there was a lot of angst for the school district in terms of overspending your budget, because that's the cardinal sin. So my first impression of coming into the district and meeting the superintendent, the business manager, and the treasurer is that we have 3 people in key leadership positions that are looking to improve the district and to give it their best effort. And that as I've gone along with them, that I see that every day that they are engaged, they're doing even more. That, you know, I can identify some things, and then they'll tell me about something that they're doing that I say, well, how come I didn't think about that ahead of time to ask you, about that? So the district had a tough reputation in terms of overspending and the difficulty in the communities, and that from day one, I have found the administration to be responsive and responsible in terms of managing it. And it's just like what I mentioned in terms of the audits, is that a good audit for continuous improvement is that people are going to keep identifying more things that will help make it run better. And that's the goal. So that one, the debt gets paid off as soon as possible, and that you're out from under this cloud.
Thank you. I would also ask that with respect to the communication to the commissioner and the commissioner's office, it's easy for us to say because we live it day in and day out here in the district, but I firmly believe that there are no outstanding issues that have not been attended to. Can we do things better? Can we relook at what we're doing? Absolutely, but I just want to confirm that from your communications with the Department of Ed, in particular the Commissioner's office and people, are there any stones that have not been turned over?
Nope, there have not been any stones that are not turned over. So that in one of my recent conversations, the people, the commissioner's office through Jay Sullivan, were very pleased in terms that there are not any outstanding issues that aren't being addressed, and that everybody is doing it with a sincere, purposeful, professional manner. So there are no warning signs. But in terms of the finances, and having been in Julie's spot for 25-something years, I know that things can change on a dime, and you can say, boy, Roger was just here the other day saying everything is hunky-dory, and now we have a problem. And I said, well, you have to keep watching and looking at everything.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Roger, for your presentation and your assistance. It's appreciated.
Very good. Well, good luck with your budget deliberations, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, we'll start the presentations of the principals, and the first one up is East Brookfield. Ron? You want us to come down? Yeah, we'll take it.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here, I really am. Let's see, we're starting off here with the level services for this year. If you can see, salaries are going to go up about $17,000. Supplies, only about $500. We kept that to a minimum. And custodial supplies and maintenance, about $6,500. So with level services for FY15, we're looking at about $24,300 in increase. Okay, most of these are the same. The principal salaries, clerical salaries are the same. Classroom specialist teachers, because of lane shifts and steps, you're looking at about $15,000. Paraprofessionals, same thing, about $300. Library clerk, a little over $500. Nurse will stay the same. custodian 600. Stipends are actually going to go down just a little bit. Everything else is the same. And then built in for a nurse substitute is almost $700. All right, here are the projections for next year, and the number of classes are not set in stone yet, but this is based on 11 classrooms and the projected numbers. If you look, we're looking about 32. I think we have 33 students right now. Average class size 16, so we're going to have 2 classrooms. Grade 1, same thing. Grade 2 are going to have about 25 students, down to 1 classroom. Grade 3, 28. Divide that into 2 classrooms. Grade 4, we have about 37, divide that into 2 classrooms. Grade 5 down to 1, 28 students, and grade 6 will be 1 with 29 students. Okay, supplies budget. Principal supplies just down a little bit. As you can see, everything's pretty consistent. Membership dues, again, that is for MESPER and the National Dues Society, and I didn't put that in for this year, so I haven't been a member of that organization, but it's important to be a part of it. I'd like to get back in it if I could. Workbooks, about the same. Library books, we had in the budget last year, but because when we had the budget freeze, that was taken out, so we actually had 0 in that we spent this year, and that's what's in the budget for next year. The copies equipment all stays about the same, AV, maintenance, computer supplies, everything's pretty consistent here. Instructional software, $700. Screenings that we have to pay somebody to come into the vision and hearing. And health supplies, we took a little bit off of that, so you see we're only increased about $500. Okay, building maintenance, again, Julie did a lot of work trying to find different vendors or different bids, and as you can see, a lot of it is down. The heating actually went up, and I'll explain that a little bit when I talk about what I'm asking for and why that number is probably going to keep going up. Okay, water, sewer, a little bit down, electric up 2,000, telephone down a little bit, and the HVAC maintenance up a little bit. So increase about $6,500. Okay, here's what I would request. I would like 2 additional paraprofessionals in the building, $1,500 more for workbooks. Again, that $400 that we lost for library books this last year, I'd like to see if we can get that back in. $500,000 more for teacher supplies. The last 2 years, we've had budget freezes, and we've lost a lot of that money. And if you know elementary school teachers, they need a lot of supplies. It's different than the other levels. And $20,000 for the computer update, and that's what I'll explain when you probably have questions on that. Okay? And I think that's about it.
Okay, we'll follow the same procedure tonight as we did last night. I'll open it up to board members. Feel free to take all the time you want, ask whatever questions, make whatever suggestions or comments that you would care to make of the principal or the superintendent. So anyone from the board have any questions in regards to the East Brookfield budget?
Yeah,
Josh?
with the freeze last year, what do you know, just off the top of your head, what was actually spent for supplies, teacher supplies, workbooks? Was that whole amount spent, or was that frozen before you had the chance to?
We didn't spend it all, it was frozen. We tried to, because we didn't have a budget in place. Dr. Malvey had suggested that we kind of space things out, and then when the budget went down, it was frozen, and we weren't allowed to spend any more. So I think in teacher supplies this year alone, I think it was around, Julie, is that right, about around 4,000 that we lost that we didn't get to spend, and I think it was close to the same last year. So it's been a big chunk we've lost the last 2 years.
How many paraprofessionals do you have in the building right now?
We have 7 in the building, 6 of which are special ed paraprofessionals, so they're with 1 or 2 students. So I really have 1 paraprofessional in the building, and she is, because of the NIAC accreditation for kindergarten, she is in those classrooms. She split half a day in one classroom and half in the other. So really, I have no general ed paraprofessionals in the building.
Anything else, Josh? Anyone else from the board have any questions or comments? Mr. Cludier?
How are we doing? Can you explain a little further the needs budget? The few items that you have on your needs budget. The HVAC system, computer update,
Yes.
you can get into that?
Okay. I guess several years ago, before I started, they started having issues. It's a software program, and what it does is it regulates the heat in the whole building. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. When it doesn't work, Roger Bonds has to come in and manually fix it. So it's timed, at nighttime, its temperature's supposed to go down and then come on at a certain time in the morning. Well, sometimes I'll come in my office in the morning, and honestly, it's 90 degrees in there because it's not working correctly. So again, that's part of when I said why the heating costs are gonna go up, it's because of that. Now, with everything else in the district, is that a priority? Probably not, but to know that sometime in the future, it's probably going to break down because it's getting worse each year. And that cost is the price that the former director of maintenance, when he was looking into it last year, came up with. He said around $18,000 to $20,000 for the software to update it.
Okay. I have a few other questions. I'd just like to go through them. What part of the budget that you're presenting to us addresses some of the items that were identified to us in the DSAC report?
Well, I would say the paraprofessionals, if I get it even 2, that would allow me to do more of the tiered system of support, to help with the first grade teacher who has 25 students and no support. It would allow her to do more of the second tier in the classroom, things like that. And also, the workbooks, one of the most important things is getting a consistent curriculum lined up with the Common Core, and that's not what this will do. What it will do is, if I receive all that money, it will allow me to get ELA and math workbooks from one company that we've already looked into that's already aligned to the Common Core, so it would give a base for every teacher from K to 6 to be on the same page and make sure they're hitting every standard. It's not a program, because programs are very expensive, but we don't have the money for that, so this is a way for us to start to be consistent in the building.
Okay. Your paras currently, you said you did not have a general para in the building?
I have one for kindergarten, and she split half day between the 2. The other 6 are all special ed paraprofessionals.
Okay. Hold on one sec. Julie, through to you. I've got a report here that says there's going to be 7 sped paras in East Brookfield next year. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think we're missing one.
And 1 kindergarten para, correct?
Yeah.
And is that it for East Brookfield?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I've got this correct. So is that, Ron, you're suggesting that's an increase from what you have this year, then? The
That's,
7?
maybe I miscount. That might be 7 that I have then, but no, that's not an increase. That's what I have right now.
Okay, well, that's why I'm asking.
Because one of them actually is classified as a special ed tutor, okay?
Where I think we're off.
Yeah, which is, it's really a paraprofessional, but she's a different title, and I think she gets paid somehow differently, a separate.
She does have a separate contract, but she is the 7th person that you're not.
She's the 7th one right.
Yeah, so there is 7
Okay.
positions.
Okay, thank you. Could you please identify in priority fashion what your top 3 priorities would be to ensure that the students in your school get a proper education?
Okay, well, I think the clear first one is a district issue, not school. I think in order for any of this to happen, that the stakeholders in the district we all need to learn to work together. The administration, the school committee, all the union groups need to learn to work together and trust and respect each other, because until that happens, I'm not sure that we can get to be where we want to be. I think that I've worked in districts where that was the center of everything else that happened. That starts here. Second, I would say, eventually we need to get that aligned curriculum with aligned with the Common Core. We don't have that yet. The district's working hard to get there, but to me, that's a priority. Staffing, every school is understaffed. I would say that would be number 3. And I'm going to put a 4th in, Vinny. I think technology really needs to be addressed in this district. We are frozen at every school on what we can do.
Sure. That's fine. Thank you. Currently, how many open classrooms do you have in your facility?
I have 2 classrooms that do not have students in them.
In the proposed average class size, is there a possibility to combine the 2 third-grade classes into one?
Is there a possibility? Okay. Yes, there's a possibility.
Here's where I'm going, just so you know, because I've asked everybody this, and I'm going to continue to ask this. I'm looking to be able to fund some of the things that the various schools are looking for in their needs assessment budget. And I can tell you, the only way we can do that is by looking to squeeze every possible, penny that we can out of the budget. So that's what I'm looking to do.
And you know what, Vinny, I totally understand that, because if I was looking at this, the first thing that would stand out would be that class, absolutely. But here's what I do want you to understand before you make that decision, and I put it on a handout for each of you.
Thank you.
Because if we're a little bit different than the other schools, and here's why, because when you cut us, we are down to 1 class per grade, and that creates a lot of problems. And I've mentioned this before, but I just want to have it in writing, and for the newer members, just so you kind of understand that when we're down to 1 class per grade, here is some of the issues that happen. First of all, you lose grade level collaboration. The research is overwhelming that one of the biggest factors in teacher improvement is being able to collaborate with their peers. And if you go into our school right now, we have a 1st grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, and a 6th grade teacher. When it's time for common planning or prep time, they're there working by themselves. They don't have anybody else to run any ideas off of or to plan with. To me, that's critical. Again, some of the other ones, possibility of having twins or siblings in the same class. Any psychologist will tell you that's not a good idea. Having the same students in the same class all throughout elementary school is not socially responsible. You will have all special needs students in the same classroom. You limit. Every student has a different learning style, and every teacher is different. Yeah, every teacher should be able to reach out to every student's learning styles, but their personality. Some students learn better in a structured teacher environment. Some learn better in something a little bit less structured, and that's up to the principal to figure out where those students fall. If I only have 1 teacher, that eliminates that learning opportunity. Teacher movement year from year. Again, that's not good teaching practice for me this next year alone, I'm going to have to move 2 classroom teachers to different grades that they haven't taught before. And you also run the risk of I've moved already, and she's taught half the students 2 years now, and if I move her to 4th grade next year, 3 out of the 4 years, she would have taught probably 9 or 10 of the same kids, and that's not a healthy situation. So there are many reasons why 1 classroom per grade are issues. And I know we're in a budget crunch, and I lost 2 teachers last year, and we had to condense, but I just want you to know that these are problems that are faced when you do that. That if I had 3 or 4 classrooms and I cut it down to 3 or 2, these wouldn't be issues, but because I have to cut down to 1, and then any new student coming in has to go into that classroom. There's no wiggle room there. So those are issues that we're facing with 1 classroom. So I just hope you understand that when you make your decision.
Thank you for that explanation. I do understand it. I kind of look at it, I'm looking at it across the district. I'm not looking at, East Brookfield just because the school is in East Brookfield. I'm not looking at it as any different than the schools in Spencer. And when you look at, the same classes in the town that happen to be, the buildings are in Spencer, we're looking at an average of 26 children in a class. Grade 4, 29 children in classes in Spencer. I mean, it would be nice to take those classes and knock them down and add an additional class at the Wire Village School, but we can't do that in the budget crunch. So I just need you to at least, you don't have to agree with what I'm saying, and I'm certainly not even making the recommendation at this point. I'm throwing it out there because we need to discuss these things openly, publicly, and we need to certainly at least acknowledge the fact that we could save by combining this class into 1. We absolutely could. And given the needs assessment that you've asked for, it'd be certainly a healthy way to maybe put a big dent in what you're asking for on the needs side.
And you know what? I totally understand where you're coming from. I just wanted you to understand where I'm coming from, because there are issues. Again, if you're looking at the whole picture, then we are different, and you have to look at it that way, that there are going to be issues that arise that will not arise at the other school. Yeah, that stands up, but if you look at some of the others, and we have 29 fourth graders, we have 25 first graders that we haven't had a paraprofessional in there. So we have large class sizes also. Our 4th grade class, I think 29 fourth graders is the largest, or at least tied for the highest amount of elementary kids in a classroom in this district. So we've taken a big hit the last year on this, and I know looking at that's the first thing you probably looked at, but I'm just asking you to consider the other side on what it means if, again, you take another one and that limits me even more, and I have to move teachers around and combine, and it just creates a lot of problems.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before you get off to another point, Vinnie, just so we don't have to come back to revisit this, I just have a question in regards to that as well. Having said all that you said about the disadvantages of having 1 class, what you've given us here, and what you just stated, how do you reconcile that with the classes that you now only have 1 class in? You only have 1 class in grade 2, in grade 5, and in grade 6.
You're right, and last year I was up here doing the same thing about not losing those classroom teachers, and I did. So
How have you found these issues that you've given us? Have you had a problem with twins in the same class?
we do have twins in the same classroom,
Okay.
in a grade. And like I said, I mentioned, to me, again, the collaboration is huge. And I've seen that first grade teacher that has 25 kids by herself this year, and when it's time for her to plan or prep, she's sitting by herself because she has no other first grade teacher to plan with. That really stifles a teacher's progress and growth.
Okay. But you are currently operating with 3 classrooms that are one grade, 1 classroom per grade?
Yes, we are.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Vinnie.
Okay. Thanks for that explanation. I wanted to go back to heating because I forgot to, I was getting to a point with that $20,000 for the HVAC computer update. Is that an update, or is that is it a broken piece? Is it?
My understanding was it is to replace the software.
So
It's a whole new program.
Okay. So with that said, if that $20,000, and when you say program, we're talking software.
Software, right.
Okay. So if we were to put that $20,000 into the budget to take care of that, are you suggesting that that's going to reduce your heating costs?
No, I was saying that that may be a reason why the heating cost is going up, because like I said, when I come in the morning sometimes, and I'm dealing with 90-degree heat in several classrooms, kindergarten class, my classroom, the office, not all the time, just when the program feels like not working, I think that that has something to do with the increased heating costs. Now, I'll be honest with you, out of everything on my list, that's the bottom of my list, okay? Roger does a great job coming in, fixing it in the morning when it's going cuckoo, you know, but it's something that could break down in the future, and then it will have to be replaced. So I just want to make you be aware of it.
Okay.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Would it be appropriate for that to be put into a capital item?
Yes, it would.
That's what I think, and that's where I certainly like to see that be placed. Just a few more questions, if I might. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the safety of your staff and students within your facility?
Right now, I would say we're pretty safe. I mean, we've upgraded our situation at the school the last 2 years. I would say, I would never say a 10 because that would be irresponsible. I would say we're an 8.
Okay. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just.
We're
Opinion.
pretty locked down there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the times that I've been there, I mean, it certainly has been. You know,
Yeah, and they let you in anyway, Vinny.
let me in anyway. But they did escort me around.
We didn't let you alone in the building.
I think that's all I had at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ron.
Okay.
Any other members have any questions for Ron? Mr.
Jim,
Nyquist?
get back to heating. Is that gas heat or oil heat on your building?
Yes.
Gas, yeah.
Gas?
We gas.
Thank you.
I just have one question. With the workbooks being purchased, is that the same for Lake Street and Wire Village? Are they all coordinated?
I'm not, at this point, we've investigated this on our own at this point.
Okay.
Anyone else? I just have just a couple of minor things, Ron. On my visit, when we went and saw you, I think at that time you were without a library clerk at the time that we visited. And I know you've had one back now for some time. And I see there's library clerks at your place, Lake Street, Wyatt Village. How would you feel about not having a library clerk for the hours you have, or maybe less hours, if you were able to use that money towards getting the workbooks for the ELA and math to come into line with?
Well, first of all, our library clerk is only 3 days. It's not a 5-day position right now. Okay, so it was cut last year from 5 to 3. Could it be cut a little bit more? Maybe, but you're not going to save any money because then you have, that's part of teacher prep time when they're in library. So you would have to find a way to have a substitute take over that time, and you're really not saving any money.
Okay. Anyone else have any? Vinny?
Just a follow-up to Heather's question, actually. I was surprised by your answer to her question. Is there a reason that we're not aligned with the other schools with workbooks?
Well, we haven't even got that far yet. We're still working on the committee to try to align the curriculum. This is just research for this presentation. Nothing set in stone. I've just been looking at all these different companies and what's available and how much they cost, just so if we, now obviously if we get the approval for these workbooks, then the 3 elementary schools will get together, and you know, one of the key things is everyone being on the same page in this district.
Your opinion. Help me understand, workbooks versus textbooks.
Well, textbooks have all the instruction in there. They have, you know, the lessons are in there. Workbooks, first of all, are like 1/5 of the cost. But the workbooks nowadays, if you look at them, they do have, at the top of a lot of the pages, like in the math ones, they'll give explanations on how to solve the problems on that workbook page. So it gives like a brief mini lesson, so to speak, on the material being taught. Again, it doesn't have the manipulatives, it doesn't have the whole package, it doesn't have stuff for the enrichment students or the struggling students. It has just the basis that's aligned with the Common Core.
Are those books hard copy, or are they available online to download? How does that all work?
Well, again, several different programs, Vinny. There's so many companies out now, and they've just about all aligned with the Common Core. The ones that we've looked at are hard copies for the most part, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Next up on the agenda is Lake Street School.
Thank you. Okay, so following the same format, we start off with the overall budget with the salaries, the supplies, the custodial supplies, and the maintenance. And you can see a difference from FY14 to the level service of $40,662. When you look at the salaries, we had lost that part of the clerk's position, so we went down to 1.7 this year. There's 13 teachers. We have 6 kindergarten teachers, 5 first grade teachers. I share art and music half-time with Mr. Tomlin, and I have a full-time gym teacher for the 13. There's 6 paraprofessionals. There's a paraprofessional in the kindergarten classes, a full-time library clerk, the nurse, and custodians. The anticipated enrollment, it's basically just about the same numbers as this year. It's 113 for kindergarten and 113 for grade 1. This year's, we lost a kindergarten teacher. There used to be 7. This year we have 6. And we used to have 7 grade 1 teachers. And this year we lost 2, so we're down to 5. Same type of thing here. Some were losing a little bit of money. Some we added in. Same thing with the memberships and dues. That wasn't in there. Went up a little on the postage, adjustment with the copy equipment. Teacher supplies and materials will go up. Same thing, we buy all the art supplies out of there, all the papers, the glue sticks, everything comes out of there. Health services, we're saving $1 there. I'm not really quite sure where that comes from. So it's a subtotal of a difference of $526. For the building maintenance, same type of format that Julie worked with different companies. So on here, it's a difference of $1,865. And if I could have any requests, I would request that my clerk come back full-time. $4,000 for workbooks. We always had the consumable workbooks that went along like with the Scott Forsman series, and they were called literature activity books. So if I don't know how they're aligned right now, but again, that would be something that we could look into. But if we could have some of those consumable back for the little ones. They also really liked, they had journals that they would write in, words I use when I write, things like that, that were age appropriate for them. There's also a lot of different things. We started now with the Foundations program. It's a phonemic awareness, phonological. It has some great components to it, so if we can get more into there. $400 for library books and supplies. That's like for the pockets on the back cover because we still use the old system, the binding for the books. And the $10,000, I had put that when Julie and I kind of just was looking around to see about a ramp and things, but Gary Woodbury did come up and spend some time with me the other day, and he took some measurements, so he's going to get me a price, but he thinks they could do it for much less. He's going to come back to look at the playground because that's going to be an issue with the children that are in wheelchairs because it hasn't been, since I've been there, I don't think they've come back and ever touched the playground at all. And then the other thing we're looking into right now, the elevator is working. So the parents that have the children can park out front, because there's 2 handicap places right in the front of the building, so they can park in there, go up the ramp, and use the elevator. It would be nice to have one in the back, so they could use that back, the side entrance. But that, yeah, Gary's going to look into that, to do like a curb cut, so they could take and wheel the child right in there. So that would be my wish list. But he said what he would do, he's going to follow up with all the information. He takes it to the disability commissioner and then the select board, and he'll have an answer. But he felt that it was doable on their part.
Okay, any question from members for the principal at Lake Street School?
I'll start again.
Okay, Josh.
On your supplies budget page, you have FY14. It shows that nothing was spent on workbooks, library supplies, or library books. Do you know what you spent the year before? Did you spend anything?
Yes, the year before, I definitely did. I mean, I wasn't there for for last year, but the year before, that's where we bought all of our, the workbooks I was talking about, the literature activity books.
Yep.
And that's also where we would buy, for the younger ones, the first and second grade, those were consumable math books. They didn't have the hard covers, so we had to buy a book for each child in the school.
Okay. I guess the point I'm getting at is I see in all these budgets, the supplies we're just cutting the supplies down to 0. I do see a rather large increase on teacher supplies and material, not that I don't think they should get it, in comparison to the other schools. Were they short last year? Did they? Why do you project that they need so much?
I believe what happened at Lake Street, and I know when I was there, we had a supply closet that, we had, always have extra in there, so they were able to get by with a lot of the supplies that they had, because teachers, and we can all be hoarders and hoard things over the years, so.
Okay. That's it for me.
Josh. Anyone else with any questions? Vinnie?
Hey, Deb. So I have a few of the same questions, a few different questions. In looking at your projected class sizes, it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're looking at 11 classrooms
Yes.
for this coming year. I'm not going to ask you if you can combine classes, okay? But 11 classrooms, so that's what you anticipate. What do you have this year?
11, plus 4 preschool. But preschool falls under the SPED.
Okay, but I was talking in the facility, so you have 15 total classrooms.
Oh, no, I don't know. We don't have one empty classroom in the building right now, because Head Start is in one. Head Start uses one room for an office. We have we actually have a diapering room this year for the preschool, so it's a half room that's divided. So half of it is used for that.
Okay.
The other half is basically like a timeout room, because we do have several children with issues that have to sometimes be taken away from the general population. We have the room that Title I uses. So every room is occupied. We have the music room is now in a classroom upstairs, and the art room is downstairs, and we have the library.
Are those rooms used every period throughout the day, or are they?
We, not art. I have art on Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, Friday. So for 2.5 days, the art room's not used, and vice versa with the music room.
Okay. Just give me a second. I'm just making some notes here. Okay. As far as with the budget that you presented, what part of this budget addresses items that were identified in the DSAC report?
Well, I think one of the things that when I was in the role as the curriculum coordinator, one thing that I felt strongly about was the whole RTI, the way everything was set up at Lake Street. At that time, there was a lot more aides there. We had a lot of the title people. I lost a couple of title people this year again. We had a reading teacher. We were able to take and do a lot more, in the classrooms with response to intervention stuff. Right now, we're doing it, but we could be doing it much better. So I wouldn't want to lose any more aides. I wouldn't want to take and lose anything like that. Another thing is the whole thing with the DSAC. When I went to Tracy, who was the English language person for DSAC, and I questioned her about the teachers coming to me and not feeling that the children were coming as well prepared for first grade, second grade, as they moved up. There was a new program put in several years ago at Maple Street, the Tools of the Mind, and the teachers just didn't feel it's a developmental program rather than an academic program, and they felt that they were really missing some of the skills. So we got together on several occasions with the curriculum coordinator at that time, and we talked, and some of the program was tweaked. But then I sat down with Tracy when I was in the role as curriculum director, and I asked her if there was anything that she could suggest to get our, the kids better prepared. And the thing that really made me look into it and call Tracy up and seek her out was that was the first year when those children that had been in the Tools of the Mind program got into third grade at Lake Street, that their scores actually fell below the state. Lake Street had always been scoring above the state. So I had listened to the teachers over the years, and then when those first graders went to second grade, the second grade teachers saw a difference. The second grade teachers, so it was kind of this trickling effect. So, like a lot of districts might sometimes do, you put a Band-Aid on different things. We brought in the Alexia program, which is a computer program, and the teachers do like that. And now we brought in foundations, and they really seem to like that. That hits on a lot of different areas. And that was the program that Tracy suggested to me. And I actually, the Southbridge school system had implemented it, and they felt like they were getting good feedback. So I went there with some teachers, and we spent a day there to look into it. And it started this year, so I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. The additional clerical time that you're asking for in your request budget, $6,000, is that for the 180 school day calendar, or is that for summer help? What is that for?
The clerk would just work the 180 days.
So it's just school, it's not for summer?
Right. And where it becomes an issue at Lake Street is if there's only one person in the office. When those little ones come in, the secretary a lot of times has to escort the person, the child upstairs. So the office is, left unattended, or I have to go there for a while with the nurse.
Sure, okay. Currently, and you may have said this, and I might have missed it, I was looking for it in my notes. How many paras do you have at your school?
Well,
And if you could, I'm looking at this, what I have in front of me, and it says 2 sped at Lake Street. And then it says Lake Street sped 6. So is that a total of 8 sped? Julie, am I reading that correctly? They're in 2 different areas. Just want to make sure I have these numbers correct.
I want to say that there's a total of 19, but a lot of throughout the building, but we have a lot with one-on-ones. And then the kindergarten classrooms each have 1. So that's where, Julie, I believe that's on the Lake Street salaries page. I believe that's what that 6 was.
Yeah, so the 6 on there are for the preschool, and then when you go into the special ed one, there's 6.
No, 6 on here are.
There's
the
6
kindergarten.
preschool, and then when you go into the special ed, there's 6 special ed, and then 10 preschool.
10 preschool.
Yeah,
Okay, so a total of 22 paras at the facility.
yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that number correct. My last question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you view or rate the safety of both the students and the staff in your facility?
I would say I'd say a 7, 8 safety-wise coming into the school, because no one can get into the school without buzzing in. All the doors are locked in the morning. I would feel better if I did have more staff to be out on duties with the children. Right now, I do 2 duties a day because we just don't have the staff to take and be out between the recess. So I do morning, like breakfast duty every morning in the cafeteria with the children, and I do 1 lunch duty a day also. And then if there's, because we can't hire anyone when an aide calls in, if an aide is out, I try to go and cover their duty. So that part, I would like more safety in that area. But as far, I feel very confident with the buzzer system and everything in our building.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Vinnie. Anyone else have any questions? Deb, on your library clerk, how many hours do you have a library clerk for?
She works full-time. She works, the Monday through Friday full-time. And she covers, though, a lot of the additional for the classroom so they can get their prep time that's in their contract.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't think there's any more questions. Thank you for your presentation.
And the flagpole is working.
Okay. Okay, moving on, next on the agenda will be the principal from Wye Village School. Linda? How are you? Good.
Good evening, everyone. I was wondering if you would allow me to read you something aloud first, or you could sit down as I do, either way, wherever you're more comfortable.
All right. We'll get out.
Thank you. All my colleagues come to you with a vast history, mostly with the town and the community and with their schools. And I didn't have that, so in preparing a budget for you, I really felt that I had to look back a little bit towards the history before moving forward. And I want to start back with the last school committee meeting where we heard Eva Mitchell, Associate Commissioner, state that the need is no longer to maintain, but to persevere in improving the quality of instruction to meet the needs of all students. Bruce McDonald, who was there then and has also worked with the fourth grade teachers in this school, said we have to improve student achievement through improved instruction. He stated the need to create professional discourse or feedback and accountability through discussions between principals and staff. He recognized both at that school committee meeting and also on a learning walk that he did, I believe it was in January, here at Wye Village. He recognized that we have very dedicated teachers, and we do. We have an incredible staff here who have already begun that practice 2 years ago. And he noticed on the learning walk that although progress had been made, he also did see a need for more academic rigor and differentiated instruction at all levels. The budget for Wye Village that I'm going to set before you tonight is intended to take those next steps with respect to a difficult decision to be made by each of you and with respect to the current financial situation within the district and how it impacts the community. I looked closely at the district review report, so when you mentioned that last night, I was really happy to hear that. It's kind of how I spent my February vacation, I think. I looked for a glimpse into the past, plus my current experiences here for the past 5 months at Wye Village, and my previous experiences with fiscal crisis in other towns, new teacher evaluation models that I've had to work with, and in knowing what goals and challenges await us as we move forward. I found the best things in the recommendations. They tell us the things that we have on the right track. The district and building leadership teams that have been formed, curriculum mapping underway, and which is also the foundation of the district and school improvement plans, and a multi-year plan for curriculum review. But what I heard said most was that the district leaders need to be able to define what good instruction looks like and commit to sustained plans for dissemination and applied practice of those models and strategies to support higher level thinking skills and academic rigor in our classrooms. But then I found some interesting history in that DSAC report that that directly correlates with Wire Village. Previously had things like a positive strategies program, which had been eliminated a few years back. The grade 4 team who had worked with Bruce on the DSAC, independent of him and praised by him, they had developed and implemented a small group program to address all different levels of math needs and even some enrichment in Math Stars. Wire Village, I didn't know at that time when it opened, had an assistant principal. I think of the years were approximate, 2006 to 2008. That's when the school originally opened and held 18 classrooms, and that position was eliminated. And last year, Wire Village had a dean of students position, which was eliminated. Wire Village had some other impacts on them last year. They had a redistribution of grades from grades 4 through 6, or a total of 300 students, to grades 2 through 5, a total of almost 440 students when they were planning for this year. The number of classrooms increased from 12 to 18, and similarly the number of staff increased. There were the loss of 2 teachers, whereas 7 first-grade classrooms were consolidated into 5 second-grade classrooms. Not only did the dean of students position was eliminated, but there was a departure of the current principal at that time as well. Increases in class sizes went up to 28. There was a reduction in the office staff where the clerk was reduced to 1.7, or instead of a full-time, she was reduced to 0.7. There was a loss of the instrumental program for grades 5 and 6, which impacted our students here, but also at the junior high. What we had this year coming in, and I still feel very positive about it, was a unique challenge. We had a transition of students and staff to a new environment, a limited number of materials, no supplies or workbooks had been ordered. Technology was minimal, or at best it was unequally dispersed. We had large class sizes, up to 28. School routines had to be established, and disciplinary concerns had to be addressed. And of course, there was a money issue. Well, I can't solve the money issue, but I think we've solved the others. We saw this, however, and it is the staff as well, and I really took my leadership from them. We saw this as an opportunity. The students entering grades 2, 3, and 4 this year were all new to the school, as was the majority of staff, myself included. This gave us the opportunity to start fresh in building a positive school culture among staff, students, and parents, maintaining some traditions and establishing new ones. The students began taking on a more active role in the school, as little as being a morning announcer and our peer leaders, and you heard from them, I think, the month before last. They spoke for themselves. We immediately started recognizing parts of a PBIS model and recognizing and rewarding positive behaviors, good deeds, good efforts, etc. We started with STAR students to improve our bus procedure and hallway passing. We had Days of December, super students, Olympic events are currently going on. And we've done other efforts, including we've invited in Kaleidoscope Theater to do some anti-bullying performances that are scheduled for April that will be grade appropriate, one for grades 2 and 3, one for grades 4 and 5. We also designed an office referral system so as to address disciplinary concerns in an effective manner, but also to support changes in those behaviors. Usually, student misbehaviors aren't just the will of the student. It's usually not in isolation, but either the result of academic, social, or sometimes emotional needs. This referral system provides data so as to meet the needs of specific students, classrooms, or staff, and provide instruction or intervention to help change those. It also, however, takes considerable time, training, and staff, and with limited resources, including a recent addition of a part-time shared adjustment counselor K-2, handling the referrals, interviewing students, contacting parents, and putting interventions into place so as to improve or change those behaviors has become a primary role of the principal this year. We've also updated and improved the computer lab, installed computers and smart boards where they had been lacking, mostly just in moving them around, not in buying additional ones. We've utilized faculty meetings to also have embedded professional development activities and tasks, and the staff that has given staff opportunity to collaborate and participate and build teacher leaders. We have staff like every other school that are represented on the DCC and the building leadership team. We have held and continue to plan grade-level meetings to further provide common planning and communication among staff, and that we do after school hours. The PAWS parent group is working on fundraising and school spirit and school activities, and the school council is looking at reviewing or making some minimal changes to the student handbook for next year so that it better, relates to grades 2 through 5 as opposed to grades 4 through 6. What I'm proud to say is we have made great strides, but we still have far to grow. I know we face challenges ahead as a district and a community. As we evolve in curriculum instruction, it's going to be likely that at some point we'll be implementing a new teacher evaluation system. In my experience in a previous district in each of these areas, I know it's not easy, and I know you have difficult decisions to make. The task I felt I was given is to try to gain back some of the things that we lost in the process last year. As I read through the budget report shortly, I'd like you to keep in mind the following figures. And these were given to me just as far as general enrollments. East Brookfield has an enrollment of 198 students. I believe that that's current, but I'd have to check that for you. Lake Street, and I think this includes the whole population, is approximately 345. Wire Village, and it does fluctuate a little bit here and there, is currently at 436. Knox Trail has 382 students. David Prouty has 462, and I'd like to point out at this time that at Knox, with a total of 382, there is a dean of students, and at David Prouty with 462 is an assistant principal. Anticipated enrollment for Wire Village for next year is 458 students, almost identical to the high school and surpassing the number in the junior high. Without the request that I'm about to make, could we maintain here? Absolutely. We've already done so much and made progress in the 5 short months that we've been here. But the DSAC team and the Department of Ed have clearly stated that what we need to do is exceed. The role of the principal, as I'm sure you're aware, and this is true in every building, has changed from being a disciplinarian and a building manager to that of an instructional leader. What they're looking for are for those changes to take place, that the principal will have that role as well. I'm confident that with the current supports in place and the addition of some of the things that I'm requesting, that Wire Village will continue to grow and succeed at the rate that they hope it would happen. Thank you. And now, as enlightening, and I love being here as much as Ron has stated, if we go through the budget as you see on the screen, the salaries are showing a modest increase, although we are not increasing the number of teachers, et cetera, at the school. And this is to stay level funded. Supplies is a very modest amount, a decrease thanks to Julie, I believe, and her strong negotiation skills, and a total overall increase of only $8,404. As you can see on the next page in the salaries, they are clearly indicated as they were in the others. The principal's salary was prorated because I was not able to start until September, and the others have shown only minor increases or changes that are very similar to those in the other school. The total change is $21,463. The class sizes, the class makeup would actually be the same next year as it currently is, with 5 second-grade classrooms, 5 third-grade classrooms, and 4 classrooms in grades 4 and 5. This gives us a large class size, predominantly in grade 4. We would continue to have 18 classrooms as we do at this time. In the supplies budget, I think you're going to hear the same thing you've heard with some others. I did mention earlier that there were no orders placed for supplies coming into the school year. I don't see that as an oversight or even necessarily the budget freeze that existed. I see it more that even had they made some orders, the orders that they would have made would have been for a grade 4 through 6 school and not necessarily for a grade 2 through 5 school. And I can tell you some supplies are very different when you're talking about grades 2 and 3 as opposed to 4 and 5. The lined paper and the lines are different sizes and vary. The margins vary. And the teachers have done a lot this year. They've done the best they can with almost nothing. And so those will be some of the increases that I'd have coming up shortly. But as you could see, as far as the computer supplies, those were mostly cords and parts and replacement parts. AV equipment included bulbs, and yes, we do need a couple of other bulbs coming up shortly. But the total overall change would only be $957. And the maintenance, again, like my predecessors have mentioned, we have actually had a decrease. In the requests, obviously the high-ticket item on there would be an assistant principal. I've explained some of the reasons for that. It mostly was to gain back some of what was lost. I do want to mention that it seemed that we did make much success with the people who were here previously when they had those additional supports as well, academic and otherwise. We're also requesting $6,000 for an additional clerical time. That would bring our clerk to being full-time as opposed to part-time, and that would be for the 180 days. Much like my predecessors, and I would look forward to working with you, we found that this year in trying to make photocopies of materials that we would need, it ended up being extra wear and tear on the photocopy machines, and a lot of paper is in use. I know I've spoken with some different workbook companies recently and even over the years, and they say it usually costs about the same thing to buy something for the students, the soft covered, than to make copies. And again, the teachers have gone without so many supplies that I'm requesting also $7,000 more for teacher supplies, particularly in the move and in making those changes. I would like to note what they have reiterated to me. They thoroughly enjoyed coming to a building that is such a beautiful facility and just put forth everything possible. They work beyond, as I know they do in all the schools, they work beyond the school day. They put a lot of effort and time. I have this old saying that, you prepare all summer and you work all year. And then, are you ready? And the bell rings, the doors open, the kids come in, and we do what we do. We teach. And that's despite if there's a financial situation going on or anything else. So I do want to compliment them. Thank you.
Okay, questions from the board for Wire Village? You going first again, Josh? Or
No,
you all said it?
I would be asking questions that I've already asked. There's a theme here. I guess, how many paraprofessionals are up here right now?
I believe I have 5 and 1 one-on-one.
And you have 15,000 for additional paraprofessional. What would that cover?
Actually, that was not on tonight's agenda, the Wire Village.
That was actually a
request.
change from the one you have.
Oh,
We've
was
since changed that, taken that off.
But I could go
That's what-
back
I
to
guess
that
that's
if
what I
you would
get for
like.
having an old copy of the budget here. All right, well then,
Sorry.
I guess I'm all set.
I could request that if you'd like.
Hey, throw it in there. The heck?
Any other members have any questions? Mr. Cludier?
Chairman, thank you. Hi, Linda. Thank you for that presentation. It was very helpful. You answered a lot of my questions in your opening comments. If you had to identify your 3 top priorities for educating the students in your school to make sure that we, give them a proper education, what would the priorities be?
I had a hard time getting it down to 3, just like Ron did. I'd have to say differentiation of instruction would be one of my key ones, because we have to realize we need to meet the needs of all the students. I know that we spend considerable and worthy time on helping the students with needs. We all have needs, and I think we also need to look at enrichment and providing the needs for the students who are able to and need to be pushed further. So I like the differentiation of instruction. I'd have to say the next thing is continuous and sustained professional development for staff. Sometimes, and I know it's common and it's probably nationwide, that we tend to focus on a lot of things and not go as deep as we'd like. And we provide professional development, but we don't stay with that one topic. You've already done so much this year with looking at the curriculum mapping, and that's focused on one area and going at it really well. I think you need to continue doing that. Along with that, I see the need for articulation amongst the grades, and I am fortunate here because we do have 4 of each grade at a minimum, or 5. So wherever we can provide some common planning time, we're able to do that, and they are able to talk to each other. It's hard to keep teachers apart. They want to talk to each other. But I'd like to see that also across schools and across the district, and we'd be happy to do that and come up with other ways to do so. But as a district and at each school I think is very unique. I'd like to see starting to bring back programs, and I know sometimes that can't be done for years to come, but bringing back programs for students, whether it's band or enrichment or programs like our Math Stars that we had going on for individual schools or districts, to really help at the elementary level in particular. We really focus on the whole child. And I do think that anything that we do at the elementary level kind of goes towards supporting all the schools that follow them, all the way up through high school, and getting them ready for that college readiness. That's our task ahead of us.
Thank you. Currently, you're using, I think you said 18 classrooms.
Yes.
How many classrooms are in the facility?
Approximately 7, and I say approximate because we also have one put aside that is specially put aside for the after-school program. And we also have one that's currently being used by our title teachers, which is nice because they have all their materials and supplies in there. However, of those 7, some of them are set up as the building previously was for science labs. So some of them are being used. Sometimes the teachers will do team teaching and utilize those for science labs, but they are available space per se.
Okay, thank you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how safe would you rate the facility for your staff and students?
Mm-hmm. I think that the measures that we have in place currently, and I say this because the staff is very diligent, focused on our efforts, and I have a lot of communication between the staff and myself. Anything they need to feel, they feel they need to share with me, any urgency at all is immediate, and they come to me. We have that close collaboration. So on that part, I'd like to say a 9. However, we do have the buzzer system. We're very faithful with that. But would I mind having a little bit more in the lines of cameras or security or things like that in a technological sense, or technical sense, I guess that would be. In that area, I would say we're probably on par with the others, in between an 8 and a 9.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I might, I just want to make a few comments to Linda. Last year, I was elected to this board. It was in May of last year, just a little while before you came on board as principal. And I took a tour of the district at that time. I met with every principal in the district, and I met with some of the teachers working in the buildings in the district, and I met at the time with the principal of this building. And through discussions, and Mr. Hayes actually was with me during that, one of those visits, and during those discussions with the principal, we talked about the need for a vice principal or dean of students, whatever you want to call the position. And we talked about, whether it was something that was needed or was not needed. We talked about the possibility of, if we closed Maple Street, how the schools would, the classes would be reabsorbed through the remaining school buildings. So we discussed all that. And then something happened. Don't quite know what, but I have my thoughts. But come budget meetings, the information that we were given changed. I supported, given the crisis and the budget crisis, removing the dean of students from this building and not re-including it in the budget. I supported that. And I'll tell you, given what's gone on in this past year, given the size of this facility, I no longer support that. I think we need to have a vice principal at this school.
Thank you.
Don't know how we're going to find in this budget $85,000 for a vice principal, but I'm going to commit to you that I'm going to do everything I can to find that.
Thank you.
Can't tell you how it's going to happen right now. We're going to have long discussions here. There's a lot of ideas, I'm sure, amongst the board members. That's just my opinion. And I think that the communities of Spencer and East Brookfield have to understand where this is coming from, have to understand the size and the class sizes and the student enrollment at this school. You're stating 458. I actually think it was, no, that is
Projected
correct.
enrollment.
That's the number that's anticipated for next year. So I do think there's a need, and I'm going to work hard to fulfill that need. That's really all I can say at this point. So, but thank you. Thank you for your presentation. The rest of my questions were answered with your opening remarks.
Anyone else have any questions for Linda? Mr. Nordquist?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask you, on East Brookfield, there was $1,500, and Lake Street was $4,000 on workbooks. Why is yours $9,000?
I was anticipating, I can't speak for the other schools, but I was anticipating a budget of approximately $20 for each student, depending on what we would be able to purchase.
Do you have workbooks now?
No.
My other question was,
Do you want me to raise that amount, Kurt?
no, I didn't get
Okay.
that question. What my other question is I heard Mr. Sablocki talking on I would say playtime. That's not the word I'm trying to say. Recesses. How many teachers do you have out of recesses with the students?
It varies from 3 to 4 per each recess.
Teachers.
Yes. Teachers or staff.
Okay. I guess that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Linda? Linda, how many hours do you have a library clerk for?
She is here Monday through Friday.
And is that used a lot for teacher prep time?
Yes.
Classes it did, okay. All right, well, thank you for the presentation you gave. That answered most of the questions that I had ahead of time, so I appreciate that. And there's no more questions for you, so thanks for coming.
Thank you.
That ends the items on our agenda for tonight. We will meet tomorrow night here at Wire Village at 6 o'clock. And at that time, we'll be meeting with Karen Zaleski, Pupil Services Director, and the superintendent and the business manager will review the district part of the budget with us at that time. Do any members have any comments or anything that they care to bring up? Please?
Mr. Chairman, do you, given that it's only 7:30, and I know you've set the procedure that we're going to follow, and I'm okay with that if that's what you'd like to do you want to discuss, seeing we've completed all the school buildings, do you want to discuss any of this? Just for the sake of time. Time is ticking, as we know. We're going to be looking at a budget, finalizing a budget in a week. Do you want to discuss any of that tonight, or do you really?
I certainly don't have any objection to it. My only concern would be is Mrs. Gershman's not here tonight, and we had said that we would wait and do it on Wednesday.
That's fine.
I don't want to,
I'm fine with that.
eliminate anybody from.
No, I agree.
Chance to have their say.
I wasn't thinking about
their
that.
vote.
Okay. It's fine.
Any other questions or comments? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Cloutier, Mr. Nordquist.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cloutier. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you.